mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bryan Caprice from Major League Trading, and I'm here today to spend about 45 minutes, maybe up to an hour, to go through a methodology that I've created with Major League Trading and use Nadex to trade it. So it's called the 30-Minute Trader Program, and before I get started, let me go through some risk disclosures, both for Major League Trading as well as Nadex. First, no representation is being made that the use of this strategy or any system or trading methodology will generate profits. As you guys have probably heard once or twice, past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. And a big thing is only risk capital that you could stand to lose. You should never be, trading your rent money or milk money. It's kind of a joke that we have that not many people have milk money anymore, but don't trade that. Only trade with income that you can stand to lose. With risk is reward, though. Just keep that in mind. Now, as far as Nadex disclosures, trading on Nadex involves financial risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. The information presented here is for information and educational purpose only, and it should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Any trading decisions that you make are solely your responsibility. They also have the past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. And Nadex instruments include forex, stock indices, commodity futures, and economic events. And there's one addition that has they don't have added here, but there's also cryptocurrencies up here now. Bitcoin is also tradable at Nadex. Now, Nadex binary options and spreads can be volatile, and investors risk losing their investment on any given transaction. However, the limited risk nature of Nadex contracts ensures investors cannot lose more than the cost of the transaction for it. Nadex is subject to U.S. regulatory oversight by the CFTC. If you guys want more information on that, definitely go check out the Nadex website to get more information on that. So with that being said, let me cover the agenda for what we're going to go through today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through who benefits from this type of trading. It was a methodology that I created because of limited time that I had. Just so you guys, just a little bit of background on myself so you guys understand kind of where I'm coming from. I'm a dad of three. I have a brand new newborn. She's about 5 weeks old now. So, with two boys, they're 8 years old. They have their sports, they have their school. We do have a split household, so I drive the kids to school when they're over at their mom's and things. I volunteer at their school as well. So sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day is just not something that I'm able to do and have other responsibilities out there. But I love trading. I've always been good at it. I like helping other people. So what it is, I created this 30-minute trader program to basically, figure out how can other people trade when you only have 30 minutes extra in a day to kind of fit in your trading, whether you be new or experienced. But not everybody benefits from this type of trading, so I want to make sure that this is something that you can incorporate into your actual trading. And if so, again, kind of give you some direction for it. I'll talk about what conditions this can be traded under. This is actually a fun section to talk about because it is available. And this morning, there were some great setups for this mentality, and we literally had all three conditions at the same time. I'll explain what Nadex is and why I use it. If you're here, you probably know what Nadex is, but I'm going to make sure that you guys understand why I chose to use Nadex and pair this up to the 30-minute trader program. Next, I'm going to go into the lunchtime trader. This is probably one of the most difficult things that, different time or different kind of conditions to trade, but one of the ones that everybody tends to eat lunch, and you do hopefully get a little bit of a lunch break. And I call it lunchtime trader, but it's more of a sideways strategy, and it's something that you can do in Nadex, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of people like it. It's very easy to understand, and again, I'm going to really kind of try to explain that in detail today. I'll also go through what the news trader is. Now, news trader was one of the things this morning. If you guys know anything about the currency market, the dollar Canadian had a lot of news this morning. So this morning was an amazing, amazing news trade. And I'll go through and kind of explain what a news trade looks like and what would have happened this morning had you traded it. And then also give you guys an overview of the overnight trend trader. And again, like I said, all three of these conditions and all three of these strategies were actually there this morning. I actually, traded the overnight trend kind of trader strategy during a news time. And you could have actually placed a lunchtime trade with it as well. So actually, all three things happened this morning, which is pretty spectacular. So with that being said, let me go into who is this for. All right. So first thing, this is for people who work full time and can't log on during normal working hours. Now, if you're here, this is 3 p.m. Eastern time. You may be out, you may be checking in from work. You may be retired, but most people, and not just you may not necessarily work full time, but what if you don't want to be in front of a computer? You want to get out, you enjoy golf, you enjoy other things, and you don't want to sit here all day. Okay. This is something that you can do before work, during work, after work. And if, not sitting in front of a computer for, 6, 8, 10 hours a day is, what your goal is, then absolutely without a doubt, you should kind of embrace this methodology and trade this way. All right. Another group of people, and again, I use these categories because the categories also determine the strategy that you're going to kind of focus on first, but it's for people that want to trade at night before you go to bed. So it used to be when I had my twins, I was working full time. I enjoyed my job. I loved my job at the time, but I also enjoyed trading. So I would go to work during the day, and I got the bells and whistles and the perks from that job. Getting great benefits in a company car is nice if you've ever experienced it. So I didn't want to give that up with 2 newborns, but I also did a lot of trading. So I would work full time. I would come home. I would take care of the kids. And then what happens is I would typically trade at night after they went to bed. Now, a lot of people will tell you that you cannot trade at night because there's nothing that's moving. Well, I trade the currency market primarily, and there was plenty of movement. There wasn't gigantic swings, but I didn't need there to be. Okay, so you can absolutely trade at night if you want to do that before bed. The only caveat, if this is you, just be careful when you start trading before you go to bed and you start making some money. You tend to get pretty excited about it, and then it's really hard to go to sleep. It's like drinking coffee after 5 p.m. If you're a little bit older, you know what I'm talking about. Now, the next group of people would be people who want to trade before going to work. So when I was younger, I definitely was not a morning person. I was definitely much more of a nighttime person. But as I've gotten older, I'm much more capable of waking up early now and doing things before I start my traditional day. I do not leave the house now. I do basically just work from home and trade. But for me, if I had a 9-to-5 job, I would still wake up in the morning and I would look for setups. So say, you have to be at work at 8:30 in the morning. Okay, there's nothing stopping you waking up at 6:30 in the morning, placing a few trades, spending 20, 30 minutes to analyze your charts, place your trades, and then go to work. Okay, due to Nadex and the predefined risk and predefined rewards, you know what you could lose going into any trade. So if you are a morning person and you would like to make money before you go to work, again, this is a mentality that you should embrace. Okay, the only person that's keeping you from doing it is you. Now, next group of people is people that are absolutely brand new to trading and people that are scared of losing money. Okay, if you fall into this category, and we all fell into this category at one time, or maybe you're a futures trader and you know nothing about Nadex, again, this is for you because it gives you just a few rules and multiple strategies based off your personality and the time of day and the amount of time you want to put into this. Okay. It's also for people with smaller size accounts. So if you are new to trading and you have a smaller size account, this is absolutely without a doubt for you. You should embrace something like this because you don't need a lot of money to be able to trade this system. And you can build your account over time. And again, because of the perks that Nadex offers, it gives you a lot of good kind of nice potential. Now, it's also for people that want to trade during, be able to trade during lunch and hopefully make some money, right? Again, I say hopefully because there's no guarantees in trading. Just keep that in mind. But if you have a half hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I mean, whatever it is, whatever your lunch break is, hopefully it's an hour. We don't see many of those these days. But if you have an hour, how nice it would be to make 50, 100 bucks, right? I mean, just think about it. If you were armed with enough knowledge that you could learn how to reliably create $50 to $100, right? That compounds, even just 50 bucks a day in, 15, 20 minutes, right? Using whether 5-minute or 20-minute binaries. That's an extra $250. That's an extra $1,000 a month that you could potentially, put in your pocket. That's an extra $12,000 a year. Now, that's a pretty nice raise for most people. I don't know what world everybody lives in here, but for most people out there, if you're getting a $12,000 raise, that's a pretty nice chunk of change, and doing it during your lunch break. All right? Just don't tell your boss, because then your boss is going to either get rid of you or, again, he's going to, or she is going to want you to, teach, them what you're doing. But they still won't give you a bigger raise than that. It's also for people with smartphones or tablets. Because of technology these days, we can trade from pretty much any platform. The world, as my, partner Jack Gleason always says, trading is global now because the internet, high-speed internet is everywhere. You can trade from anywhere you want. So if you want to trade from the beach, if that's a goal of yours, then again, embrace this mentality. If you want to trade from the mountains, the desert, Dubai, again, trade where you guys like to trade. There are limitations, obviously, for some countries with Nadex. Just keep that in mind as well. So make sure you trade from countries you are allowed to trade in. All right. So if you find yourself in this list, then obviously you're in the right place today. All right. So let me discuss the 3 different types of market conditions. All right. Now, I have some charts up here with the different market conditions so you guys can kind of see these. And I want you to start thinking about them and kind of placing yourself in what category. So the first one would be a trending market. Now, trending markets, I'm going to be, just kind of frank with you here. Trending markets are the easiest markets to make money in. So if we think about what happened in the 2008 crash, we know what direction the market went in for basically the next year, right? It went straight down. So if you understood how to make money in a down market, it was very, 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 very easy to make money. Well, most people didn't, right? Now, since that time, since we've had the bottom, the market has pretty much done nothing but go straight up, right? How difficult is it to make money when the markets are going up? It's not, right? Because everybody knows buy and hold, right? You can get lucky on things. I mean, think about it. If you'd been a crypto trader, right, for Bitcoin, all it did was go up, right, until they gave future contracts on it. And then all it did was basically go down, right? Well, trending markets happen all the time. You may look at a chart and it may be a monthly or a weekly chart and it looks like it goes sideways, but on a daily basis, it's probably trending up and down, maybe between the top and the bottom. So trending markets are things that you can find. And they typically, if you're going to be one of those before work or nighttime traders, these are some of the best time to find trending markets. So a lot of times what I do for my students is we find trends overnight, hence why I call something the overnight trend trader. Because there's not a lot of institutions out there trading money, it's just their computers. Wall Street is pretty much dead. If you've ever been in New York City, the exchange is obviously not open. There's nobody in there working. The markets tend not to move back and forth like they do during the day. And there's not many news releases. So again, great time to trade. Jump on a trend and follow it. Again, trending is easy. The next one, the sideways ranging market, is one of the most frustrating markets for people, okay? It's frustrating because, think about it. If you buy stock, say you buy a share of Apple, and it does nothing for a week. Did you make any money? No. In essence, you probably lost money because of the opportunity cost of holding that share. So sideways markets are one of those things that really the only asset class you can make money in is options, okay? Why? Because we have premium. So the best time to kind of look for sideways ranging markets are typically, again, it could be overnight if it's something that doesn't necessarily move, versus the trending, or lunchtime. I mean, think about it. How much of the market's really moving at lunch if everybody's out eating? They're not, okay? So that's, again, a lunchtime trader is going to be focusing on sideways markets. If you've looked at currencies charts lately, you'll know that there's been a lot of sideways movements. This morning when I logged in, 3 different currency pairs had less than 10 pip movement in 24 hours. The last one is the one we probably get the most email about, news breakouts. I get this question all the time. How do you trade news? How do you trade news? Is news fun to trade? This is something we get all the time. News is one of my favorite things to trade. It also can be the most volatile because obviously with news releases, there are surprises. And actually what I found was, about 60 to 70% of the time, the forecasted number is not what's actually hit. It's actually a surprise and the market reacts and jumps to it. Now, news breakouts happen all the time, okay? They happen in the morning, they happen lunchtime, they happen nighttime. And the reason why is because news releases is just not U.S. news. It's all news, okay? And markets, basically trade 24 hours a day from Sunday afternoon all the way through till Friday night. You could have Australian news, you can have Japanese news, you can have European news, you could have German news, right? If something happens in Germany with their economy, it's obviously going to affect the euro. Well, guess what? You get big spikes in these things. One of the biggest benefits of Nadex is the fact that you can trade so many different asset classes. The stock indices, you can trade commodities, you can trade forex. Well, guess what? There's news releases for all of them. In a typical week, you're going to have anywhere from, I'd say, 15 to maybe 22, 23 high quality news releases. So this was a great kind of strategy that some of my traders, that's all they do is they just trade news breakouts. This morning, the dollar CAD would have been a great example of a news breakout trade, and I'll show you a chart later just to go over it. So think about it this way. Markets where they're trending, they're sideways, or there's a potential for an explosion up or down, okay? Now, that's kind of the 3 that we're going to cover today, all right? So let's cover kind of real fast what is Nadex and why I use it, why we really, we focused on it. The fact that you can trade so many different things, as I just mentioned, from a single account is a huge benefit. And if you didn't know that, if you're only trading stock indices at Nadex, you're not doing yourself justice. Look at forex, look at commodities. Bitcoin's over there as well. It's an easy place to play Bitcoin if you wanted to get into that market without having to deal with futures contracts. All right. And the fact that it's a single account, very, very easy. The fact that it is CFTC regulated, okay, that is huge, okay? Nadex is an exchange as well. They are not a brokerage firm. They are an exchange. They do not engage in any trading, okay? They're not a buyer and seller of any transaction. They're not trading against you. They get all their money solely from indexes, from the exchange fees, right? So they don't take positions in the market. With that being said, there are other exchanges out in the world that have the same regulation. So anything you've heard about binaries in the past does not necessarily pertain to Nadex because, again, they are a regulated exchange, which is absolutely huge if you guys didn't know that. Now, the other thing is, one of the things that I like the most, and typically what people are new to Nadex that they like, is the fact that Nadex binaries, you know your maximum profit potential and loss before you even enter in the trade. What that does is it gives you a better protection than a stop loss order without getting stopped out. So for anybody in here that's traded before, you know what stop losses are, okay? The theory of a stop loss, and I say theory because I'm going to tell you how it's not true, is a theory of a stop loss is if I buy something at $100 and put a stop loss at $90, it's going to take me out of the trade and the most I can lose is $10, right? And that's what most people think. But that's not actually what a stop loss is, okay? A stop loss is nothing but an order type. And what it does is it says when price hits this price tag or this price number, send in my market order to get me out right now. Well, the problem is what happens if price is well below where that stop loss is? I mean, what if price gapped from $95, which is above your stop loss, down to, say, $75? Well, guess where you're getting filled? Do you think you're getting filled at 90? No. You put a market order in to get me out now. Well, the price is at 75. So you lost $25 instead of the 10 that you thought. Guess what happens? You could start blowing your account up and your risk profiles go all over the place. Well, in Nadex, you don't have to worry about that. When you get into a trade, you know what the maximum potential loss is and profit is before you even hit the button, all right? That is huge, particularly if you're going to be a news trader, all right? Now, the fact that you can use $250 as well to open up an account makes it affordable so anybody can start trading. That's a huge benefit too if you're new. And again, maybe you're a full-time futures trader or stock trader or options trader somewhere else, but you've always wanted to try binaries. Start with, a small size account and build it up, all right? It gives you a lot of things that you can't get in other places, all from one single account. So it's very, very easy to use, and it's something that we recommend that our traders start with, okay? So let's dive into the lunchtime trader. If you guys are not taking notes yet, please start taking notes now. This is one of the strategies that a lot of our traders really dive into, and they really, really enjoy. Now, lunchtime trader, the biggest thing I want you guys to focus on is news, okay? Why news? Because if news is happening, you should not be trading this, okay? This is meant for kind of like the doldrums. They're very, very slow. If anybody lives near the water, you know how at night when the tide is switching, how the water is like glass. That's what the market does, and that's when we're looking to trade this strategy. Now, obviously, the larger the time frame, this kind of changes a little bit, but it can be traded on small time frames. It's best suited for lunchtime trading or overnight when you don't expect a lot of news. Now, what do you need to trade this? You don't need any fancy indicators. You basically need a price chart, and if you want to add volume, that obviously helps you along, and that's it, okay? You can use any charting platform you like. If you want to use Nadex to be able to chart it, you absolutely can. Use their charting platform. If you didn't know how to use it, it's the three little kind of, it looks like a cell phone kind of strength check. Use that and a chart pops up, and you can absolutely use that to trade this. So no fancy software, none of those things. Now, here is how I created this strategy, okay? I had training in traditional options. Now, you may see this and be like, long call butterfly. It's like, oh, I kind of remember that. But it looks pretty, I don't know what this ITM, ATM, OTM thing is, Brian. This is well beyond my knowledge. Don't worry about it. Just understand the principle here. So a butterfly spread in traditional options is a limited risk, non-directional options trading strategy. It's used when you expect there to be low price movement, all right? You're not using it in volatile situations. You're not using it at, earnings or interest rates or anything like that. What you're basically doing is buying one call, okay? A call is one of the two things you can do in options. It's basically giving you the right to buy X at so-and-so price. And then you're selling two that are at the money, like right now. So basically the only value that they have is the actual premium. And then you're on the other side, you're buying another out of the money. And what that does is that gives you protection. So ideally in this case, you can see kind of this big up and down kind of very sharp triangle pyramid. Well, the way you're getting maximum profit in this type of strategy is if price goes right at the money, the spread. Well, here's the thing. If price doesn't move at all, you're golden. But if it moves a little bit, your profit starts to disintegrate pretty fast, right? So, I mean, if you're, a sniper in the market, and again, that's great, wonderful. But, most times there's going to be a little bit of movement. So people wanted to make this strategy a little bit better. And what they did is they created something called a Condor. Now, where they originally got all these names, there are so many different ones out there. Again, no quiz at the end of this. But what they did in a Condor is that they did the same thing. It was, limited risk. It was non-directional. But instead of having there be just one peak right in the middle, that, right at the very top of that pyramid, they kind of built more of a plateau. They brought the price wider out. You can see here, Now, I'm going to go back one slide so you can see. The long butterfly, it's a point, right, for your maximum profit potential. Well, the iron condor kind of spread that out. Instead of being a point, it was a plateau. Now the profit will be slightly lower, but again, you had a much more kind of little grace area, right? So a lot of traders really like the idea of this one. Now, this is where people's heads start spinning, and this gets a little bit more complicated because it's just not, calls and, buying and selling. We have puts in here, we have calls in here, we have protection, we have other ones, there's out of the monies. There's a lot more moving pieces here. And again, no quiz, so you don't have to write any of this down. But in this case, if price stays between 45 and 50, you're able to, capture your maximum potential. And your break even ends up between 45 and 50. And again, your maximum loss, again, it's limited risk. So the most you can lose is 40. In this case, it'd be, if price goes below 40 or above 55, your maximum loss. In this example, the way that looks like in this chart, again, it's not to scale. Maybe you're risking, $30 to make 100, or 90, whatever it is. Okay, but you guys get it. It's a limited risk and, unidirectional. Now, we don't have puts and calls inside of Nadex. So what I had to do was I had to take this knowledge and this theory from the traditional options realm and meld that with Nadex. Okay, so what I did is, because Nadex is a little bit different of a structure, that it's an all or nothing type strategy, this is how it works here, okay? I built what I call a Nadex butterfly, and it has the same risk curve as an iron condor, but it uses calls like a butterfly spread. But unlike an iron condor, it does not slope, it goes straight up and down. So you're either at maximum profit or you're at maximum loss in this case. Now in this case, it's typically going to be where they're making 50 or losing 50, but sometimes you can get a little bit better. So in this case, what you're looking to do is you're looking to have price end up somewhere between 24.40 and 24.44, right? You may say, why is it 01? It's because in Nadex, it's greater than the strike price, not at the strike price, okay? If you guys are familiar with that one. But it's very simple, okay? You're selling the top side, you're buying the bottom side, and this is where this gets interesting. People are like, wait, it's two things? Are they connected? No, they're actually not connected. It's actually two separate orders, so just keep that in mind. It is not connected like a single kind of entry for traditional options. So you are doing two different things here, but you have to think of it in the grand scheme of what's happening on both sides. All right. Now in this case, it's a very small range, and again, I was just trying to, I'll show you this live in an actual example here in a second. But this is kind of the concept or the theory of it. All right. Now hopefully everybody grasped that. Again, it's either all or nothing, and again, very, very wide area, limited risk. You go from there. So here's it on a chart, and these are the exact same numbers. So what we're doing, again, we sold the above, we bought the below, and in this case, if you look between 11:45 and 2:15 in the afternoon, it more or less stayed within inside of that range. So this is something that you were able to trade. In most cases, you're going to have a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio, and you can get a little bit better than that depending on the timing of it when you get in. Typically, the things that you're looking for is declining volume. And again, this is lunchtime. That's why I use between 11:45 and 2:15. I know Nadex is out in Chicago, so they eat a little bit later than the East Coast does. Hence why it's a little bit kind of exaggerated, kind of flat line during the middle of the day. Now, the other thing too is there's not many news releases during lunch. Just make sure that there is nothing foreign news release, related, because that can definitely throw a monkey wrench in the strategy. But you can see in this one, literally between 11:45 and 2:15, price stayed within inside of that range. Now, this is what you're looking for, all right? In this case, we sold the top side, which was 75. I'm sorry. The risk on it would have been 75. On the bottom side, same thing. We bought one. And what we're looking for, and the reason I brought this chart up is because what I'm looking for is the decreasing volume. So look on the bottom of the chart, and you guys will see a bunch of blue lines, right? And you'll see kind of a downward sloping red line. So all that is I put a trend line inside of the volume, area. It's nothing fancy. There's no crazy signal or anything. Literally, what I'm trying to show you is how price basically, or how volume basically dropped off. Okay, if you see right around 12 to 2:30ish time frame, price just collapsed, right, and then stayed very, very low. And right around 2:15 or 1400 here, the volume started to pick up again, meaning traders came back from lunch. So this is the ideal time to be looking, for this, right when you get that little collapse, and it pretty much happens every day. So again, no news. Like I said, typically these are 1-to-1 risk to reward ratios. There are ways to make these 1 to 2 and get better. Kind of what I would call advanced exits, which I won't cover today, but you can make them a little better than 1-to-1. All right. So let me show you actual numbers here. This was a situation, and this was an 11 a.m. I believe this was actually, yeah, I think this was actually, this was probably a 2-hour binary that I did in the morning. It may have been the daily, but I'm pretty sure it was a 2-hour. Typically, it's best used on 20-minute or 2-hour binaries if you're going to do the indices. Typically during lunchtime, because that's as small as it goes. You can do it on 5 minutes, but I find that it's a little bit more difficult there. 20 minutes seems to be ideal during lunchtime. And in this case, you can see we sold the top side for just under $25 at $23.25, and we bought the bottom. Excuse me, we bought the bottom side at $76.75. So we were very, very close to the $25.75 on those two. Now you'll notice too, just so we're clear on this one, there is risk on both sides of this. Okay, on the bottom side, because we're buying, the bottom side we're buying for $76, we have $76 worth of risk. On the top side, we have about the same. Okay, now somebody inevitably always asks this question. It's like, wait a second, that's a lot of risk for one trade. And you may say that, yes, but here's the question that I want you to answer. Again, you don't have to type it, just answer to yourself. Is price capable, or is it possible for price to be above and below both those strikes at the same exact time? And the answer is no. So although they are not linked, there's no way that both of those can be losers, okay? And that's what helps lower the risk in this trade to a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Just so you're grasping the concept on this one, all right? People typically ask that, so I'm trying to just, cut that off before the question. So here's an example of a couple of them that I did, so you can kind of see how they worked. Now, in this case, I kind of did deviate from the rules slightly. I actually used 2 strike prices on the top, but that was because of the time, like the duration that was there, all right? The prices had already shifted on me. So in this case, I sold two different strikes at the top side and was able to capture, what, $30 on that one, $31. And then on the bottom side, the same thing. I bought it for 80. And the reason why I used 2, I ended up taking on more risk, and just be aware of that one. But this one only had 4 minutes before the expiration because it was a 20-minute binary. So at the end of this time period, I was able to capture the $100, bank about $51.50, $51.50 profit in this one in about 4 minutes, just using a sideways strategy. And if you look at the chart at the top, look at the volume at the bottom first. Price was still kind of bouncing, and you'll see a spike a little bit below, and then it flatlined. Okay, so I was looking for a good entry during that time frame, but I expected price to kind of rally back up to the gray box. So that's kind of where I was looking. I had the flat line with the green at the bottom, and again, I put a green box down there when price flatlined. I'm sorry, the volume flatlined, and then I ended up getting into this, later on. All right, right after this one, you'll notice this is the next one. Okay. This one on the top side, I ended up selling it for $30.50, and the other side I was able to get $75. Now, same thing. This is kind of the pre-shot. The last one I wasn't able to do that. This pre-shot, you see how I drew once again that the red trend line in the volume graph. See how it kind of goes over, went down, and then just kind of stayed there flatline. That was my trigger to get into this area. Now, in this case, I was using, these were very, very small. This was a 24.64 to 24.6350. So we're talking about 1 point here, right? People are like, God, that's not a lot. Yeah, but it was also only 20 minutes. There was no volume, and I knew what my risk was going into the trade, right? My risk was the opposite. I had 70 risk on the top side and 25 on 75 on the bottom. So I knew what my risk was. And again, this one was a 20-minute binary, and I was able to profit $54.25 in about 20 minutes. Okay. And the interesting thing too is if you look at the actual expiration value, I don't know if you guys can see that. Look on the right-hand side, the third thing down. Look where the expiration value was. Literally smacked in the middle of the 2 strikes. A lot of people, say, well, God, that's so small. Were you nervous? No, I mean, the gray box was the actual range that it needed to stay in. And if you look at it, we had 5 candles in a row. I mean, the third candle in kind of touched the bottom briefly. But, it basically stayed sideways within that 1 point range for the entire, kind of duration of this trade. And again, in 20 minutes. I mean, so think about this. If you were able to kind of duplicate this yourself, you could take your lunch break. You could be eating your sandwich. I don't know, maybe, if you're one of those people that likes Chipotle, maybe you got Chipotle, you're waiting in line, you place this trade, and by the end of lunch, you made $54 minus what you have for Chipotle. Not a bad way to kind of trade, right? It gets you in the market and gets you live. And again, this trade could have gone completely wrong. It could have went, straight down. The bottom side could have lost $75, but on the top side, I would have made the $30.50. So I would have lost $45 on it. And vice versa, if price skyrocketed straight up in the air, I would have lost 70 bucks on the top side, but I would have profited 25 on the bottom, and again, $45, right? So again, nice little one-to-one strategy a lot of people use. There are ways to get yourself out of it a little bit early to not take full losses on it. Biggest thing though, again, no news and make sure that your volume disappears. All right. So here's an example of another one that I took. And if you paid attention, I said that it works best on 20-minute and 2 hours. Well, here is a weekly butterfly. And I just want to show you guys the versatility of this actual trading strategy. So here's if you guys don't ever trade this, the NKD is the Japanese Nikkei. Okay, it's the Japanese market, right? It'd be the equivalent of the Dow for us. So I didn't really look at this too often. I didn't really pay much attention to it. And it's interesting. I don't know if you guys, have you ever read the pop-up when you first log in? It gives you the news for the day. So this was the pop-up that happened when I logged onto my Nadex platform. It said, Japan holiday schedule. I'm like, Japan has a holiday? I had no idea, right? But it said, due to the holiday on Friday, the Japan 225 contracts have been modified. Well, what was the modification? Basically, they didn't have anything on Friday. So for a weekly contract, it was a 4-day contract instead of a 5-day contract, which made me think, it's a holiday week. I mean, think about it. If we had, I don't know, if we had, say, Christmas or the 4th of July, or think of any holiday, if we had one of those on a Friday, what would happen, right? Would people be trading all week? Probably not. It would be very, very slow, right? So first off, I'm kind of thinking, this could be interesting. Let me go look at the chart, all right? And that's what I did. I pulled up this chart, and when I looked at this, I said, wait a second, this thing is really going sideways, and it's kind of smacked in, where these red dots are. You'll see what the red dots are in a second, but it's basically just going sideways within a range. It's kind of stuck in this channel. I'm like, let me see if I could, apply this Nadex butterfly to this, and let me see if it makes sense. So that's exactly what I did. Okay. The dotted lines here is that channel that I drew for you before. And if you look at the top, here were the contracts. Okay. There was a 21.25 and a 19.925. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm trying to find every reason in the world not to take this trade. Okay. But it matches every single one of my rules. And as a trader, I don't think emotionally. I don't think what's going to happen. I think, what is the rules telling me? It was in that range. I was able to get better than 25. I was able to only get 72 on the other side, so it was a little bit less, but I really liked everything, and price was kind of dead, smacked in the middle. So when I placed the trade, that's when I changed these dotted lines to yellow. So they're not red anymore, they are now yellow. And price went away. We went through Monday, we went through Tuesday, and actually I found this Monday afternoon, so there was only 3 days left because Japan had already finished for the day. And price kind of went down and went down and went down, but it was still staying within the range. I expected it to bounce like it had previously off this bottom level. And the profit goal on this one was $60, right? I mean, I had a 200-point range here, right? That was a pretty large range for this thing to bounce around. You can see it really, it is going pretty slow. Well, end result was it didn't work. Why am I telling you that? Well, I'm telling you because of the reason it didn't work, all right? The teal line here is what the expiration is. Now, you'll notice price came down and then kind of one large bar, and then what happened? Price kind of stabilized and then rallied back up and kind of came back down again. But it basically just flatlined. So it was flat, it popped, and it flat, right? Well, for those of you that remember back in this time frame, you know what this pop was, or this pop down was? This was the first time that North Korea shot missiles across the sea over towards Japan. And, obviously the Japanese market was going to, react to that. Now, is there any way that I could have prepared for that one? No, absolutely not. Was I okay with the risk in the trade? Yes. Could I have actually gotten out of this trade with 0 loss? I absolutely could have, okay? But what I'm showing you is, had we not been in a time frame where people were shooting missiles, it literally flatlined, and I expected price to end up, and it would have ended up right over here, and it would have been a successful trade. Now, I'm showing you this because no strategy is flawless. Things are not going to work. Be okay with them before you get into them. But as far as a weekly strategy goes, it actually would have worked out great with those factors involved. And all I did was follow the rules. I had a top side, I had a bottom side. And, the profit made sense, 60 to, to lose 40 on the other side. Sure, why not? Sometimes you just have to pull that trigger. So since that time, I've done a couple other weekly trades, but I like showing you this one because I don't want you to think that, I'm right 100% of the time, or strategies where people will lose money in the markets. That's okay. Just make sure that your risk to reward ratios match up correctly. All right. So I love this trade to this day. I still love this trade. I wish I could say I made $1 million on it. I didn't. I got out for basically almost nothing. But again, great trade, great methodology, and something that you can apply to multiple different time frames, whether it be lunchtime, in the morning. You could actually trade this one at night too, when there's no news. Morning's a little bit more dangerous because you tend to run into more news releases. All right. So With that being said, let's cover the other side of the coin, right? The biggest thing we're worried about with trading, butterflies is news, okay? So Nadex news trades, there's two outcomes to every news trade, right? And I don't mean win or lose. What I mean is every news release has two kind of end results, okay? If the forecast is dead on, right? Say if they release numbers and it's exactly what the forecast was, you're probably going to have a little movement because it's already been priced into the market. A great example of this is interest rates. When everybody knows the interest rate is going to, jump by 0.25 and it jumps by 0.25, the markets typically don't move too much because the market has already priced that move ahead of time, Now, the flip side, and again, this happens probably about 60 to 65, 68% of the time, the forecast is not right. Okay, it's kind of like the weatherman. Like if you guys have ever looked at oil, oil is typically not right often. Okay, it's actually incorrect more than it is correct. If they forecast that there's going to be a negative 1.4 million barrels, right? And all of a sudden we have a surplus of 5 million. The price moves, right? Because they didn't expect that. And, that shocked a lot of people. So the traders get in there. Well, price skyrockets and we can take advantage of that. That's exactly what we're going to show you guys how to do here. Now, news happens all day long. You'll see at the bottom the most popular times for news is 4:30 in the morning. And you think, what kind of news, Brian, is happening at 4:30 in the morning? Well, guess what? European news happens a lot of times at 4:30 in the morning. Between 8 and 10, we typically have US and CAD news a lot of times. 2 p.m. in the afternoon is when FOMC releases most of their notes. And then 9:30 p.m. Eastern, if you were thinking, guess what? That's when Australia and Japan start releasing their news. Okay, there's some great trades on, say the dollar yen, during those times, or the Aussie dollar. So again, news happens 24 hours a day. Now, here's what a news trade is looking like. Okay, now with news, there tends to be a lot of volatility. That's why options are typically more expensive. Prices can explode, right? And that's what happened in this case. This was natural gas, and this happens almost every week. The last couple of weeks it's happened. Examples of great news releases are going to be, oil inventories, FOMC when we're raising things, non-farm payroll, what happens all the time, natural gas, interest rates. There's a couple other big ones throughout for different countries. But in this case, I was able to get into these trades for very, very small amounts. I mean, think about it this way. The one on the left-hand side is natural gas, right? I mean, actually, they're both natural gas, but, one of them was a spread, one of them was a binary, okay? If you look down at the bottom, this is a 5-minute chart. Price jumped from 288 all the way up to 299, and that's actually a pretty huge move inside of binaries, right? Now, what kind of move is this? I mean, in a matter of 10, 15 minutes, I was able to bank, $84 or $100 in the other direction. And if you look at it, if price was down at what, 288, 288.50 in that range, the binary I bought was not close. It was not an at the money binary. It was not a $50 risk binary. I was buying the 292, which was, 3/4 of the way up that large green bar. Okay, so these are kind of out of the money trades, but these happen all the time. All right. And again, you can trade these with spreads over at Nadex, or you can trade them with binaries. Okay. Here's an example of what I mean by the misses. Now, these kind of boxes at the bottom, this just comes from Forex Factor. If you've never been over there, it's the list that almost every trader uses for news releases if you don't have it on your chart. But I mean, oil inventory, it was supposed to be, the forecast was the one on the left. The forecast was supposed to be 38. It was 28. I mean, everyone, you think, oh, is that a lot? Is that not a lot? Look at the price and you tell me if that's a big miss, okay? Last year, I think it was all but 6 or all but 7 releases, and these happen every single week on Thursdays. All but 6 or 7 of them missed. Now, are all the moves this big? No, not all of them, but a majority of them are. Okay, the last couple of weeks that has happened. On the right-hand side, let's look at Canadian, GDP. You think, is Canadian GDP a big thing? Well, look at this. The forecast was supposed to be 0.2%, and it came in at 0.6. Okay, that's a big difference. What was the end result? In 15 minutes, that thing dropped 100 pips. That's a big move, right? I mean, had you that in a spread, you could have made $100. Most binary contracts, if they're done by 50, you just dump 5 strike prices in that one. Okay, that's a huge, huge move in a matter of 15 minutes. Now, think about it. Had you been trading that, say you were just a regular currency trader, right? A spot currency trader. Imagine if you were long the dollar CAD going into that news release. What would have happened on that one? Imagine if you had, say, a 10 pip stop loss and that big candle, If you had a stop loss at 125, right, and price started at 125.50, you lost 50 pips, and that thing gapped so far down, you lost over $100 in 15 minutes, and your stop loss wouldn't have worked. Had you traded the same exact thing in Nadex, say you were long this position in Nadex, and you knew that your maximum risk in this position was $19 or $20, guess what the maximum risk is? $20. So that's why I like combining the Nadex with news releases, because of that limited risk. It gives you a lot of potential over there if you're not looking at it. All right. Not all news releases are created equal, so just keep that in mind. A lot of people will go to Forex Factory and see, oh God, there's 8 reds today, I'm going to trade all day long. No, they're not all created equal. You definitely need some training to understand which ones will move and what the potential for the moves are going to be. So just keep that in mind. I don't want anybody going out there and be like, oh, that's it, I'm just putting this on there because Bryan said I can make all this money. No, you guys have to understand the news releases and what can move and what cannot move, and understand the risk associated with them. There's also some technical things we focus on just to make sure that we're not running into something. There's a reason why these stop where they stop. On the left-hand side, there's a reason why price slowed down and then stopped at 299, and there's a reason on the right-hand side why price shot down and then kind of stagnated over 124.50. It's important to understand those as well. Okay, so just don't go into it blindly thinking that I've given you the entire strategy here, because I haven't. I just want you to understand what the potential of being a news trader with Nadex is. Okay. Now, overnight trend trader, this is probably by far my most favorite. Well, besides news, news is probably the most fun. The most consistent one is the overnight trend trader. Now, the chart on the right-hand side, this chart, and if you look at it right in the middle, right, it says trend line, then it says name trend line number 5, and then it shows you the start time, the price, and it says 6:11 p.m. And then the end of the red line ends at 9:25 a.m. So it's basically, this is the end of the day, and the start, and it ends right before the start of the next day. Well, look how much movement there was. Okay, this is an example of an overnight trend. It moved 12 points. It went from 24.41 to 24.54. Okay, I'm sorry, 24.41 to 24.54. So this thing moved 12.76 or 0.73. It moved a lot, right? Overnight, when the markets weren't even open. Okay, if you had been a futures trader, that just made your day right there. Well, with this, you can put your positions on at night, right? After the contracts repopulate, once you determine that trend is going the correct direction, you could have woken up in the morning, say at 8 o'clock, and already hit your profit target for the day. Okay, it's one of the things that a lot of people say. I always talk about waking up in the green is the best thing to do. But most people don't really tend to focus on overnight trading. Now, this is in the indexes. This is not currencies. Don't worry, this is not a Forex trade. But this type of movement happens all the time. Now, why is this trading, beneficial for you? Well, typically, I mean, I'll say it's lower risk. I'd say it's lower risk to kind of, there's equal risk in all trading, okay? I would say it's lower risk due to reduced news, and there's no institutional traders there because they're sleeping, okay? Obviously, the Fed is not releasing notes in the middle of the night. So again, you're not going to have wild swings. You're not going to have whipsaws. Once it kind of gets in its path, it tends to go in that direction, okay? If you don't believe me, go out and check it on a chart. But in these 15 hours from 6 to 9, it moved quite a substantial amount. Now, me personally, I tend to trade this more with spreads than anything else, but you can absolutely do it with binaries as well. Don't forget the spread tab over at Nadex. This was an example right here. This is multiple days in a row. Now, this is the NASDAQ. Okay, this is no longer, the ES. We're looking at, NQ on this side. Okay, we had drops of 19, drops of 38, drops of 530, drops of 23, drops of 384, an increase. So every night this thing is moving. Those lines are all drawn from 6 till 9. All right, so you can see where these things move. In this case, this is an example of me using a spread. I got into this for $25, meaning I was going to, the most I could have lost on this was $25. If it literally went against me in this case, say price, it was a buy. I bought a 58.70 to 59.10. It cost me $25 to get in. Okay, if price would have literally collapsed and gone down to 5,700, I could have only lost $25. In this case, it moved in the other direction, and I had my profit target set for 75, and it took me out with a 1-to-3 risk to reward ratio. Risking 25 to make 75 is awesome. If you know anything about risk to reward ratios, focus on those. You only have to be right 26% of the time, if you're using 1-to-3s in all your trades. Now look at the chart. How many nights would this have worked? The first night, probably not, right? Next night, yep. Next night, yep. Next night, nah, probably not. Kind of open and close at the same space. And then three winners in a row. All right. So Great trade setups for these things when you're able to find them. All these you would have been able to wake up, and if you potentially lose one but you won four, you're doing great, right? That's overnight trend trader. So definitely take an eye and keep a look on that one. And again, this analysis took me less than 30 minutes. And again, 30-minute trader program. Spend 30 minutes before you go to bed. Place the trade. Wake up in the green. That's the goal for this. Okay. So here's another one. Ignore the alert service aspect of this one. This was another trade. I talked about that, we were looking to double our profits on this one. It's an overnight trade. The risk on it was between $16 and $20 when the person got into the trade. You can see the actual, the entry at the bottom, the second box from the bottom. When I put this in, it was nighttime. It was what, almost 8 o'clock at night. It cost me $16 risk to get in. So the most I could have lost was $16. I set my profit target. It went through, and that triggered it at 5 o'clock in the morning. 5:07 a.m. I was asleep and pulled my $50 profit out of this one. You can see that. Pretty simple, guys. It happens all the time. This was an overnight trend trade. It was a larger time frame, kind of middle time frame downtrend, and I got into it. Price kind of went up, hit my area, got into it, and I slept through it all. So I don't remember anything of this trade. I don't remember what I dreamed about that night, but I know that at 5:17 my phone went off, and when I looked over, I saw that I'd made money for the day. All right, that's what overnight trend trading is like, and a lot of people are drawn towards that. All right, so what are your next steps? I'm going to show you guys a chart in a second here and kind of explain one more thing. But if you guys don't already have a Nadex demo account, open it up and try some of the things that I covered today. You're not doing yourself any justice if you're not out there trying things. Particularly, again, if you want to go in there and make sure that, you get the correct education for the news releases first, but try some of the butterflies. They've given you enough information that you should be able to play some of those. Try them out. Try them out at night. Try them out during the day. Do it in demo, and then, fund an account once you feel that you've kind of mastered the concept. Install charting software if you do not want to use Nadex charting, which it works perfectly great for all these strategies. You can really, basically use anything. If you want more information about Major League Trading, please follow us on social media or go over to our website. This is where you can find us. We're on Instagram. We do all kinds of videos and things like that. Major League Trading on YouTube. We tend to try to focus a lot on, giving, other content out there as well. And with that being said, that's the conclusion of this. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share another chart for you guys. Oops, I'm going to put it up here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that yet. I think you can. I'm pretty sure you guys can. All right, so it should be in the blue now. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Hopefully you can see the full chart. You may not be able to. Let me just blow this one up right here. So for those of you who can see this, and I do hope you can, this is the chart of the dollar Canadian, okay? And this is a 5-minute chart. I could use any of the other, the other ones, but I marked this chart up first. So this is this morning, okay? When you're looking at Forex Factory, all right? For those of you that, oops, let me pull this box out of the way. Forex Factory this morning at 8:30, there's a news release, okay? The Bank of Canada was going to speak. So I was looking at this trade, and I expected there to be an explosion, okay? Now, there's a couple different ways that I could have played this. If there was going to be an explosion because Bank of Canada, I expected there to be a kind of a retrace, okay? It's a very common thing that happens. People jump the gun in a lot of cases. And I placed the trade. I actually, it was a trade that I sent out to some of my students. Price literally skyrocketed down. Now, I used a spread on this one. Why? Well, because of the spread, it gave me the ability to not need to be 100% correct. And I expected a retrace. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to capture my profits well before expiration. Now, the yellow box is basically it's a 2-hour time frame. Okay, so I was looking at 2-hour binaries and I was looking at spreads, and I ended up choosing the spread because I expected a spike, and it went down. It literally, it went like 5 pips past my profit target. I had basically a $30 risk on this one, and I took it out and sold it and made $60. All right. Well, there was the payout was $60 on it. Now, you could have done a news breakout trade on this one as well. Okay. This one actually would have triggered in 2 different directions had you combine a couple things we were talking about. You could have made money on the downside, and then what did price do after that? Price literally rallied all the way back up the top, right? If we look here, right, from this time frame up, price did nothing but rally straight back up. So could you have played this one down, gotten your profit target taken out, and then rode this until it hit your topside profit target? Absolutely, okay? That's another thing you could have done with a news breakout. So I took the trend down because, again, we were in a downtrend, and I expected it to continue down based off of this analysis as well as larger time frame analysis. I captured the spike. Now, could I have done a butterfly trade on this one? Okay. I left this one a little bit blank for you guys, but I put 2 lines. So the start right here, I'm going to make this in blue. So you know what? Let me not do blue. I'll do orange. Okay. That orange box, here's the 9 a.m. Here's the 11 a.m. Do you see how different price is? If price started, make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Okay. Price started here, right? And price ended here. For those of you that can't see the little numbers over here, that's a total of 5 pips. So in 2 hours through news with everything going on, even if you had a butterfly on this one, you would have been safe, right? Because it only moved 5 pips. And a lot of times this is what you see in news releases. And again, this is in our news trading for people that understand. When price spikes, it typically retraces back to where it originally was, okay? So again, you could have taken this with a 2-hour binary and you would have made money on both sides, having it end within 5 pips. You would have had at least a 30 pip range on this one based off the premium that was involved with it. So again, 3 different setups. You have your downtrend, you have your news breakout, you have your butterfly. All 3 of them would have worked today with the dollar CAD, depending on which strategy. Your risk would have been predefined in all those situations. All right. That's 30-minute trading. Like I said, I did this analysis this morning in about 15 minutes. I had to take my sons over to their friend's house. They were playing with another kid on their lacrosse team. And literally, I was in the car for this entire thing happening. And once again, I got an email that I hit my profit target, and it took me out of the trade with a working order. All right? So with that being said, I will answer 1 or 2 questions if anybody has them. Let me see here. If anybody has any questions, I will answer just a few questions here, and then we will get moving. If not, I will end it up soon. So I'll give you guys like 15 seconds, 30 seconds to type any questions. And this one doesn't have the function to see if anybody's typing, I don't think.